There is talk. This is something the governor floated around over the weekend, that we'd do an extension. So basically, they will extend everything. So everything stays as it is. We don't shut down the government, but it'll be extended until May, when the federal budget comes out. So almost blame being put on the federal budget, which I think is a bit bogus. But what we're hearing that's really big going on right now is the fact that there is a struggle right now. There are the Independent Democratic Conference. That is the group of more conservative Democrats that are caucusing with the Senate Republicans to give them the majority in the Senate. There seems to be a bit of mutiny going on right now, and it's all over the issue of the age, raise the age. And that is that in New York State, a 17-year-old, is it 16 or 17? 17-year-old, I believe, can be sent to prison, as it can be tried as an adult. And they want to raise that age to 18. That's the key issue. And the word is that the Democratic Conference, the Independent Democratic Conference, is they'll accept, they will not come to the floor for a vote unless this is passed, so that it goes to 18. So they're struggling with the rest of the Republicans, and that's the battle. That's why nothing's getting done. And they're not budging. So now, if there is an extension today, is that what we're hearing that's going to happen, is that today they're going to vote to extend this budget process. What does that mean for projects out there? What does that mean for money that's going to be spent, the money that's promised? Or how about school districts? This is going to be a disaster for school districts. And Dr. Rick Timbs is on the line right now to explain why that gets tricky and almost impossible to deal with. Good morning.
Good morning.
Crazy times apparently going on right now in Albany, and we've heard people saying they've never seen it as bad as it is right now.
Well, it's interesting. Obviously, what always perplexes me is they've got all year to work on this thing.
Right.
Obviously, the governor comes up with his proposals in January, early mid-January actually, and they've got at least January, February, March. Why can't we get this done by March 31st?
Yeah.
The key thing is some of these things can be held until after the actual budget approval, because some of them are policy rather than just money. But at the same time, these things have been intertwined for the last few years.
There seems to be really a battle over power of the Senate. Who's going to really control policy in the Senate? And, like it or not, these Republicans need these 8 Democrats.
That's absolutely correct. So what you've got here is this alliance with the IDC, with the Republican majority, basically. They don't have enough votes to pass everything that they want, so they need the help from this IDC, which are really Democrats, but they're not part of the Democratic caucus.
Yeah. Dave Valesky, by the way, is one of those.
Right.
Is one of those 8. So if it gets delayed,
mm-hmm.
What does this mean for school districts?
Well, then school districts will not know what kind of state aid they'll get from the state for the subsequent year, and their budget vote is May 16th. They've got to decide on a budget by April 21st. If the state budget isn't done until the end of May,
right,
then school districts will be voting on their budgets without knowing exactly what their state aid will be. And so they have some clues, perhaps, but the thing is chances are what they may have to start doing is, really tightening down the hatches and start saying, well, look, until we know what our money is, this is basically what we're going to have to try and vote on, and it's a basic guesstimate. Now, obviously, it's a educated guess, but the key thing is there is some trend data for school districts to guide them, but every year the legislature comes up with a little something different, a little different twist. So it's a concern probably to every school district in the state of New York right now.
Yeah. So so you would you'd have to tighten your belt and think that it's possibly going to be the money coming in is going to be lower. And then are you able to adjust right after that?
No, actually not. See, that's the problem. The problem is the money in the end may not be lower, but you don't know. It actually should be higher because the state has increased school aid, and it actually owes school districts $4.3 billion, so you would hope it would extend this increased aid every year for at least another 3 or 4 years to get right back on track where they left off in 2008-9. But the key thing is districts should be able to expect more, but they won't actually have that amount known. So what they're going to have to do is put some estimates together on what this budget would mean. Once the budget is passed, and it will say more aid shows up, they can't change the budget. So the dilemma is that they're stuck with that expenditure line that the voters will vote on. And don't forget, they still have the tax cap here. So what actually happens is there's ramifications for the tax cap and its influence as a revenue for school districts.
This can't be the first time this has happened.
Oh, no. It has it has happened before, but it hasn't happened actually since Governor Cuomo has been governor. He was really putting on-time budgets together, and we were really thankful for that because it helps you plan.
Yeah.
The comptroller, at the same time, wants school districts to do multi-year plans. And, it's difficult to even do a single-year plan at this rate until the legislature and the governor get their act together and determine what the aid will be for schools. So part of the dilemma is that we're going to have to do our best estimates in terms of what we can vote on in May, hopefully that those revenues show up. Now, if those revenues don't show up, even though citizens may vote in a budget, the district may have to use fund balance to offset that loss of revenue by the state if it's not forthcoming.
What would you say because based on the past, and I'm pretty sure I remember this correctly, but they put out the numbers, so the budget is passed, but it takes days, and I know this is something you do as well, to go through the data to figure out what all of it means and what it's going to mean for each individual district. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Actually, what happens is the state aid the school district gets is really divided into about maybe 15, 20 categories. So each category is a distinct formula. So what the school district will get is an estimate by the state and what their state aid will be, and then the school district will have to assess that estimate against its latest data so it can make a projection in terms of what the aid will actually be, because it is a state estimate.
And what would you say how far could the state, could the legislature today push the budget out for it to still be able to affect the upcoming vote for school districts? How far could they go? What is too far?
Well, actually, once you pass about April 15th, it becomes very hard for school districts to then calculate what the state aid will be. If they knew their state aid by, we'll say, the first or second week in April, they could easily make assumptions that could carry them forward for a budget vote very, very easily. Without that, because they have to actually approve their budgets by April 21 to get out the public notifications and the property tax report card to the state and all these other regulations that must be met. So in other words, the board would approve something by April 21st for a May 16th vote.
Got it.
So if we've got something prior to that where we can assess that information, school districts can make some very good decisions. Now, absent that, what's going to happen is they're going to have to try and make some estimates. Now, there is a governor's proposal out there that actually gives them, at least everyone, a minimum 1% increase. But for many districts, that 1% simply is not going to cut it because of rising costs and all kinds of things. But the part that I think that is really troublesome here is that state aid to school districts is a constitutional obligation for the state. It's not just like a law; it's a constitutional obligation. That law was done by the Court of Appeals in 2006. New York City brought the suit; they won the suit, and the court said that educational funding is a state obligation. It must be adequate enough, it must be predictable, sustainable, and it must be equitably distributed. We're still waiting to see all of that.
Yeah.
So much work needs to be done on the part of the state.
All right, it's going to be interesting to see what they actually do today.
That's absolutely correct.
They're all in bed right now, so we hear. So.
Well, I'm sure they got to rest up. The big thing is to get some bills out there, get some decisions made. The extender to the end of May is not helpful to school districts. I think that they could do some good estimating on what they should do, but it's certainly not even close to what we would want to happen.
All right, Dr. Rick Timbs, thanks for taking the time.
You're welcome. Bye-bye now.
Quick break. We'll come right back here.